Good morning. How's everyone doing? It is really fantastic to see everyone here. Welcome to Ignite 2019. Nikesh took a few things from me, but I didn't let him see my slides this time. So there is a lot going on within the product organization, what we're building and delivering. And the good news is, over the course of the next couple days, there's over 150 different sessions to go through just about everything that we do. And so what that means is that I get to actually cherry pick the most exciting things that we've been working on, recently delivering, as well as a few things that will be announced for the first time here at Ignite. So a lot to cover. I want to pick up where Nikesh left off. Did a fantastic job framing the product strategy and what we're working on and why we're working on it. And if I just quickly follow on that, when we think about securing the enterprise, this is where Palo Alto Networks started. 12 years ago, probably almost exactly to the day, we released the world's first next-generation firewall. And what's probably most amazing to me is that 12 years later, we continue to find so many new ideas for things that we can do, new innovations, new ways to think about solving the challenge of securing the enterprise. And yes, we're going to have some show and tell later. So new ways to secure the enterprise. I'm going to highlight a couple along the way as we go this morning. Second, we're going to talk about Prisma. We're going to talk about the cloud. 5, 6, 7 years ago when we talked about the cloud, it was somewhat hit or miss. Some people would say, cloud, not for me. Other people would say, yeah, I think the cloud thing might be interesting. We'll see how it pans out. Over the last couple years, there's not a single organization or company anywhere in the world that I've met with that is not on some stage of journeying to the cloud. Not a single one. Even the most conservative government organizations are finding ways to use the cloud. We want to be your partner of choice for securing that journey to take the full advantage of the cloud. And of course, securing the future. This opportunity to leverage a very rich set of data to much, much, much better understand what is happening, to detect attacks that have never been seen before, to drive automation. These are very real opportunities that we've been taking advantage of, and things that we can do so much more in the future. So we're going to talk about all three of these areas. But I want to make sure you're not left with this idea that we have these three independent pillars. They're not. All three of these areas leverage each other, are integrated with each other, get better when you use them together. And you'll see that as we go through this morning's presentation. So let's start with securing the enterprise. Now, from the very beginning, there's a set of core principles that we used when we thought about what was needed to do this really well. Through all the ups and downs between prevention versus detection to prevention back to detection, we have been very consistent. We believe that prevention is an incredibly valuable component of what we do. If you do not prevent attacks and all you do is detect and create alerts, you will be overwhelmed. So we are constantly trying to get better at this. Integration of capabilities to reduce complexity. Automation to take the human element out and go faster. Context-based to make things simply work better, smarter, more automatic. And of course, being a platform for delivering new capabilities. These have been core. Yet you know what's interesting? When I meet with many of you, you tell me, this is fantastic. But you know what I struggle with? I struggle with the basics. I struggle with just getting proper hygiene. And when we have these conversations, this is what I picture, right? You talk about this, and it's like, gosh, we really want to do it. If only we had time. Because every day feels like this. Every day feels like constantly keeping the plate spinning. I don't have time to get to the more important things. And the word consistently used to describe this is hygiene. So I put cyber in front of it so we know what kind of hygiene we're talking about. And this has become very near and dear to my heart. Because if we don't fix this, if we don't get this right, this is unfortunately what happens. You start with the best of intentions, but as time goes by, you don't make the progress you want. And if you don't make the progress you want to make, you're not going to end up in the right state. And so as we've been thinking about this, I'm trying to think through, how would we do this the right way? What would be the right process that you would go through? And it would likely be an iterative process that gets better and better over time. Now, this is probably the process that many of you have thought through, and probably as you thought through it, you probably think, that's a lot of work. So over the last few years, we've been trying to make that better. We used to have a tool called the migration app. It migrated policy. Many of you told us that would be really useful. But over the last many years, it's changed. More and more of what that application does actually is about how to make your policy and rule set better. And so eventually it was renamed to Expedition. And what we're seeing from customers is the ability to reduce the number of rules by 10x. In many cases, not just the best case, but in many cases, we've seen you be able to get that kind of reduction. That is simplicity. We just announced Iron Skillet. This is a default configuration that has all of the secure configuration as a starting point that you can then customize for your environment. We've talked about BPA, or best practice assessment, before. A tool that allows you to measure where you are relative to security best practices, understand what you need to fix, show you what progress you're making as you fix these things, even show you where you are relative to your industry peers. And most recently, with PanOS and Panorama 9.0, we released something called the Policy Optimizer. And this is an incredible tool for being able to move off of legacy rules into app-based rules, the foundation of security best practices. Now, why was this so important? Well, everybody here, I'm sure, knows legacy rules don't work. Unfortunately, they sometimes get stuck there. Once something is there, it's so hard to get rid of it. And so we built the Policy Optimizer to try to make this as easy as possible. So let me show you. Has anyone ever seen a rule that looks like this? Yeah? Raise your hand if you have a rule like this on your firewall. Oh, shame. Shame. You know that's wrong, right? Well, here's what the Policy Optimizer does. First, it will show you in the rule itself every application that matches that rule. In this example, 376 different applications are matching that one port-based rule. That is scary. Now, what we allow you to do is to then filter through that, identify which applications you actually want allowed, check those, and start creating policy from them. Pick the sanctioned SaaS applications, allow those. Pick the ones that are too high risk that shouldn't be allowed in your organization, get rid of those. Ultimately, what you start to get to are rules that look like this. Rules defined by app ID, rules without port numbers, rules with appropriate security profiles attached to them. And over time, guess what? You find that no more traffic is matching that horrible rule that too many people have. Ultimately leading to a rule set that looks much more like this. This is what a security rule set should look like. And the Policy Optimizer makes this incredibly easy to achieve. This is part of 9.0. Any of you with our next-gen firewalls have access to it. If you have Panorama, you only have to upgrade Panorama to take advantage of it. It's incredible. All right. Now, we talk a lot about the integrated security services and the importance of them, and something that has become a tradition here at Ignite, for those of you who haven't been here before, is I always like to update you on one of the more incredible security subscriptions we have, which is Wildfire. I actually went back and I took a look at our first Ignite that we did. And I remember being so proud to be in front of many of you to share with you that we had just reached this incredible milestone with Wildfire where we had scanned almost 200,000 files. And for that first year, we'd reached about 20 million. Now, last year at Ignite, I shared with you that we had scanned and analyzed a total of 5.5 billion files. So I get to update you again. We have now reached 11 billion samples that have been analyzed with Wildfire to date. That is a 100% increase year over year. That chart is just amazing. And that translates to trillions and trillions of artifacts that we use as threat intelligence for getting smarter and smarter about what attackers do. Now, like I said, this started with humble beginnings. The first year was about 20 million samples. In the first year, there's a lot of questions of like, you're running this in the cloud? I'm not sure I can use that. So, as Nikesh mentioned, 3 months ago, we released our latest security subscription, DNS Security. And in just 3 months, we have already analyzed over 600 million DNS queries. An incredible start for a new service. And I hope in future Ignites, we'll talk about this as the humble beginnings of the next cloud-based security subscription we have. Now, how does this work? So we basically take a bunch of different sources of threat intelligence. We combine them together in order to be able to prevent known bad domains. We use machine learning to detect new domains that will be used. All of this is focused on blocking command and control and access to malicious sites. And importantly, we also look for DNS tunneling. DNS, it turns out, can be used very similar to how HTTP can be used to tunnel just about any application. All of that is packaged up as something that, from your perspective, just works. That is the value of these integrated security services. You turn them on, they integrate with your next-gen firewalls, and they just work. Now, this is one of those things that's probably a little bit easier to see than to explain. And so I'd like to invite someone on my team up, Taylor Edema, who's going to walk you through a demo to show what exactly is DNS tunneling and why is it so important that we focus on and have a good solution for it. Taylor?
Thanks, Lee. I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, and I've decided that being on the side of good is boring. I want to join the dark side. I want to be an attacker. I'm here as your hacker for the day. I don't always hack, but when I do, it's on stage in front of almost 4,500 people using my real name. Thank you. And my goal today, as hacker for a day, is to steal your product roadmap. And in order to do that, I've identified my target, your Chief Product Officer, Mike Smith. And I've been browsing your careers website recently, and I noticed there's several job postings for a 5G security expert. So I think this information will come in handy as I'm crafting the pretext for my phishing email that I'm going to use to lure the victim into doing what I need him to do. So what's the game plan? Well, what I'll do is I'll craft that specially targeted phishing email and send it to my victim, Mike Smith. That phishing email is going to contain a link to a PDF hosted in box.com. That PDF will also have a link in it, which takes my victim to a landing page that I've crafted that delivers a drive-by download, drops malware on his machine without him seeing or knowing anything, and that malware will establish a command and control or C2 channel back to me, the attacker, right here to this machine. And it's going to do so over a DNS tunnel. Lastly, when I get access to his machine, I'm going to go ahead and find that document, the roadmap document that I want to steal, and I will exfiltrate it out of the network over that same DNS tunnel. Now, as an attacker, I have many choices when it comes to how I establish my command and control, or C2. Today, I've decided to ride on top of DNS. Why DNS? Well, it's always there, always on. It can be relied upon. It's just as chatty and high volume as something like HTTP, so it's fairly easy to hide inside of, especially when not a lot of people are looking there. Simply put, if it works and it's there, I can use it. So that's the game plan. What does everyone think? Think it's going to work? Yeah? All right, I'm excited about this plan. I think it'll work. But what do I know? I'm new at this. So next we're going to take a look at the email. Let's get started here. Here's the email that has the link on it, and hopefully my victim clicks that link, as they're doing here. They're going to go ahead and see that PDF in box.com and hopefully click the link inside that PDF. Now you'll notice that there's nothing directly malicious about either the email or the PDF in box. And of course, this is all on purpose. This makes it highly likely that this kind of attack will slip through most email security measures that I might run into. In exchange for that stealthiness, of course, I have to cross my fingers a little bit and hope that my victim performs those steps to land on my landing page. But they have landed here, so I think I'm good to go. Let's see if I've got that C2 channel set up to my victim now. So I'm going to switch over to my terminal here. Awesome. I can see I've got phone home beaconing hitting this machine right now over DNS queries. When has UDP ever let anyone down? So I've got those DNS queries hitting this machine. I've got this machine sending back DNS responses. And I haven't done anything yet. You'll notice there's this ping pong roughly every second or so. It's sort of a heartbeat message that lets me know that my tunnel is alive and well and functioning. And I'll show now that I've got shell access remotely here. OK. So you can see I've got these beacons sitting there on the right-hand side. And what I'm going to do is show that I have shell access. And I'm going to go ahead and ask, who am I? And see that I am logged in as Mike Smith, the user that I expect to be logged in as. Awesome. I'm dropped into downloads folders. I expect to be dropped in the downloads folder based on my exploit running. And I dumped the network config of the machine here using ifconfig. And you'll see as all that data is sent to me as the attacker, you can see that all of that DNS traffic on the right is actually carrying the data to me. It's the data that's actually contained in those DNS queries that's sending that data to me as these subdomain queries. So what's actually going on there? How's this actually working? So I switch over to the PowerPoint again. What I've done before I set up this attack is I've registered a domain name, in this case, researchandmarketus.com, and I've set up this machine here to be the authoritative name server for that domain. And what that means is that every DNS query for that zone is hitting this machine right here, and then it can reply with any DNS response that it wants to send back. And so far, all of that's normal. But what I've done here is the payload I've sent to my victim, Mike Smith, takes any data that they want to send to me and encodes it as subdomain queries that get sent to my machine as the authoritative name server. And then I, in turn, can send any data I want to send back to him encoded as DNS responses to those requests. In fact, I can take whole files like this roadmap document here and carve it into chunks and take those chunks and send them bits at a time to me, the attacker. So you can see how it's bidirectional. I've got data flowing in both directions, which is a nice attribute to have in a tunnel. It's actually 100% compliant RFC valid DNS traffic, so it will have no trouble traversing over your local DNS server to get out to the internet and then back to me, the attacker. I can even encrypt the data before I encode it into the DNS traffic so that if you're doing any kind of network monitoring like DNS logging, it'll be very difficult for you to reconstitute the data once it's stolen out of the network. Now here's the problem. What I don't know is that as an attacker, I'm going up against Palo Alto Networks firewall using the new DNS security service. And so as I'm interacting with that tunnel, as I just did here, generating all of that DNS traffic, the Palo Alto Networks firewall is sending all of that DNS traffic to the cloud. And the DNS security service is analyzing all of that DNS traffic in real time and extracting features from every DNS query. Things like the average string entropy of the domain queries, the ratio of different types of queries, the presence of dictionary words, n-gram frequency, and a host of other features that we collect, and we run it against a classifier, and that classifier determines within minutes whether this domain is being used for tunneling. And if Palo Alto Networks decides that that domain is being used for tunneling, they shut down the tunnel by blocking any subsequent queries to that domain, which effectively shuts down the tunnel. But I, as an attacker, am blissfully unaware of all of this. I don't know that any of this is happening. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my attack here now. So I go back to the screen. And so I'm navigating now to the user's documents folder. I see the document I want to steal there, which is that FY20 product roadmap. And now I'm going to go ahead and go into download mode in my tunnel, and I'm going to attempt to download that document. Here it goes. Here are the bytes coming in. Oh, what happened? My download stopped. My heartbeats stopped on the right-hand side there. my tunnel's effectively completely shut down. I've lost control, I've lost contact with my victim. In fact, that whole domain is burned. I can never use that domain in another attack against any Palo Alto Networks customer ever again. So it really is back to the drawing board for me as an attacker. So while this was just a demonstration, I'm going to go back to the slides now. These tactics are used by real adversaries each and every day. In fact, our own threat research team, Unit 42, had first discovered and has since been tracking an adversary group that we refer to as Oil Rig, thought to be a national-level adversary based in the Middle East that uses DNS tunneling for data exfiltration and command and control against targets, and they're using that technique today. So if there's one thing to remember, it's that adversaries are clever, but they're only as clever as they need to be. They use what works. So let's not let DNS be a tool for the bad guys. All right, thanks everyone. Back to you, Lee.
Thanks, John. It's interesting when you see techniques like this that start off at nation-state level. They trickle down until they become cybercrime and eventually just common attack techniques that everyone knows how to use, which means we need to be able to stay ahead of it. We've talked about this. The interesting thing about what Taylor was showing you, though, is the ability to not just detect DNS tunneling, which up until now, industry best in class sometimes takes days to detect a DNS tunnel. We've gotten that down to a matter of minutes such that it can be detected and prevented before the attack is successful. And as a cloud-based service, we're constantly making that better and better. All right. The other aspect of this is everything we learn from these different detection techniques, whether it's the DNS security service or Wildfire or traps, et cetera, ultimately makes the other services smarter. And that's the other value of the integration. It's how we are constantly learning about new techniques and sharing those across the services so we can be in all of the places to do prevention that we possibly can. All right, let's shift gears to the cloud. You know it's the cloud because everything just turned white. As we talked about before, everyone is on this journey to the cloud. And we want to be there as the security partner of choice to help make that possible. When we talk about this journey to the cloud, that includes consuming applications as SaaS. It includes deploying your applications in the cloud. It includes securely enabling your users to access these applications, not just make it possible, but really optimize that experience for accessing cloud-based applications, which means that access really becomes part of the cloud journey as well. Now, there's challenges with this. It's very difficult to get visibility of all of this. Think about just how easy it is to use the cloud, which is wonderful. But then, how do you know what's actually happening? It's very difficult. You layer on top of that all the different tools that are available, and you start walking down that path of recreating a lot of the challenges you've seen in the enterprise in the past, which we don't want to do. Meanwhile, you can't slow the cloud down. The whole reason the enterprise and the business is moving toward the cloud is speed and agility. So you have to be able to keep up. So we're going to talk through how we try to address this. And I thought it might be helpful to give you the decoder ring while we're at it. Prisma Access, formerly known as Global Protect Cloud Service. Prisma SaaS, formerly known as Aperture. Prisma Public Cloud, formerly known as Redlock. And VM Series. All core components to our suite of products designed to secure your journey to the cloud. And as part of this, there's a number of things that cross all of Prisma, starting with a whole new user experience with consistent look and feel, single sign-on so that you can switch between cloud consoles, and the start of integrated cloud visibility, helping you get your arms wrapped around just where all of the usage of the cloud is across your entire organization. Now, to help go through this in more detail, I'd like to invite a couple folks from my team up on stage, one after the other. And we're going to start with Adam Geller, who runs products for Prisma Access and Prisma SaaS. Adam?
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you, Lee. So Prisma Access and Prisma SaaS were designed to create a comprehensive and consistently secure experience for users as they access their data. And that's regardless of where the users are operating from or what kinds of devices they're on. And it's also independent of where their applications and data are living, whether it's in your data center or in the internet, in public cloud, or even in SaaS. And I'm going to get to spend the next few minutes talking to you about some of the exciting new innovations we have, both in Prisma Access and in Prisma SaaS. So without a doubt, if you have a service that's called Prisma Access, at the heart of it has to be robust and secure global connectivity to power that kind of service. And when we first deployed Global Protect Cloud Service, now called Prisma Access, we rolled it out to 15 locations around the world, strategically placed locations, to ensure that we could have a consistent and secure global foundation for the service. And this has worked very well for us and for our customers. We have organizations that have tens of thousands of mobile users connected to Prisma Access around the world, and organizations that have hundreds and in some cases over 1,000 retail locations or distributed branches connected into this infrastructure. So this has been working really well. It's about to get a lot better. So we announced last week, we're putting the finishing touches on over 100 new onboarding locations into the Prisma Access service. We're very confident that when we have all of these locations rolled out, the global coverage that we have and footprint for Prisma Access will provide support for even the largest and most distributed organizations and enterprises out there today. Now, global coverage is not just about the performance. It's really about the locality of experience, too. So what do I mean by when I say the locality of experience? This is about taking the experience or taking the identity and location of that user and making sure we can pass that all the way through our cloud service so that it gets to the locations or the destinations they're trying to reach. Why is that important? It's important because when a user is going out to a SaaS application or the internet, something like Office 365, we need to ensure that they have the consistent and expected local experience. And we make sure we do that with Prisma Access across these over 100 locations. Let's talk a little bit about management. So today, when you manage Prisma Access, we leverage Panorama. So Panorama is our management platform for next-generation firewall, and we did this because we wanted to create a consistent experience between the firewalls and the Prisma Access service. So consistent policy, consistent workflows, and that's great if you're a Palo Alto Networks customer. What happens if you're not a Palo Alto Networks customer, though, and you don't have Panorama, you don't know what it is? Or you're looking for 100% cloud-delivered service. So I'm excited to announce that we're putting the finishing touches on a brand new cloud management platform specifically for Prisma Access. And it's not just about a look and feel or a cloud service. It's designed specifically to deliver the use cases that are critical for Prisma Access. And that comes in a couple of different areas. So I'll start on one, which is the workflows around setup and operationalizing the service. So it can be as easy as this. Let's use mobile workers or mobile users as an example. It can be as easy as, one, name your service, so it's got to have a domain so you know where to reach it. Two, select the global locations that matter to you. You might want to narrow it down. You might not want all of them in play, or you might want all 100+ locations. And three, that was it. Now you have secure outbound internet access set up and ready for use for your employees. So a huge change in the simplicity of the workflow related to setting up Prisma Access and this great global service. So we didn't just stop on the management side and the workflow side. We also looked at the security layer. How can we make it easier to consume our security services faster as part of Prisma Access? So what we've done is we've taken some of the pre-configured security best practices, some of the things Lee showed earlier in Iron Skillet and otherwise, and we've built them into the Prisma Access management. So pre-built best practices for URL filtering, file blocking, wildfire analysis, and our other security profiles are all rolled in and ready to go from the start, so you get a much faster time to value with turning on and operating and using Prisma Access with your employees or your partners. So I want to finish by talking about one of the most popular destinations in the journey to the cloud, and that's SaaS. So to me, SaaS is a little bit like ice cream, right? It's ridiculously large number of choices for it. It's super easy to taste and try just about anything that's out there, right? Super easily accessible. Now, when it's consumed thoughtfully and under control, it can be pretty awesome, can definitely hit the spot. And if you have a really unique or peculiar taste or need, someone's probably built or made something just for you. And like anything else, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there that's just plain nasty, and you should stay away from it at all costs. So in order to figure out the difference between the gelato and the chicken wing ice cream, there's a whole bunch of stuff you need to do, right, when we move this back to SaaS security, right? You need to understand the applications. You need to understand how they're configured, the risks associated with them, be able to apply a whole bunch of security protections and controls on top of it, like threat prevention, know your data, and be able to apply adaptive risk controls or authentication mechanisms based on the users and what they're trying to do and where they're trying to go. And so in order to do this, you have to be in the right locations or have the right vantage points to actually see the SaaS traffic and see that information. And so that might entail leveraging an IPsec tunnel or a VPN client to get in the path of traffic. It could involve a reverse proxy with a SAML proxy to get into the authentication and in the flow of an authorized SaaS application. Or it could involve APIs to go right over the top and speak directly to your authorized SaaS applications. All of these things together have a term. It's called a multi-mode CASB, or Cloud Access Security Broker. It's important to understand Prisma SaaS is a multi-mode CASB. That's what it does. So the reason you need all of these capabilities and these vantage points typically comes down to one thing. It's you're concerned about your data that's in the cloud. You need to be able to discover your data, know where it is, be able to classify it, what kind of data do I have in the cloud, who has access to it. And ultimately, you need to protect this data. And data protection is really at the core of Prisma SaaS. And so we're making some enhancements to that I thought were important to mention as well. We're in the process of rolling out hundreds of new industry standard data classifiers, as well as multiple new regulatory compliance profiles to make it easier for you to understand your data, be able to classify it in the cloud, and ultimately quickly protect that data you have stored in SaaS. So really, at the end of the day, though, in order for any of this to happen, you have to have excellent visibility across all SaaS. So how do you get this visibility? Where does it come from? And it has to be across both the authorized SaaS as well as the shadow IT side of things. So you have a number of choices for this, right? You can leverage Panorama and next generation firewall. That's full inline capability, so you can see all of your SaaS, and you can actually not just have visibility, but control over your SaaS experience. You can leverage, like we see in the middle, Prisma Access, a full multi-mode CASB to be able to protect your authorized SaaS and understand your data that's stored in those applications. And you can even, with the new Prisma Access Cloud Management that I showed, leverage that platform to see all of your SaaS visibility and control for your mobile users and your remote networks. So each one of these individually I think is great and provides some excellent visibility, but I think we can make this absolutely much easier for you, and now we have. So we've taken the data from all three of those different sources, and we've combined them together. So now we have authorized SaaS as well as shadow IT brought together into one SaaS visibility dashboard that lives in a new home, which is the Prisma SaaS console. So I look forward to having you try out all the new functionality that we're talking about here with both Prisma Access and Prisma SaaS. And with that, I'd like to thank you and bring up my friend Varun Badwar to talk about Prisma Public Cloud. Go to it.
Thanks, Adam. I don't think I've told you this, Adam, but my wife's pretty jealous of you. We've been spending more time working on Prisma together over the last few months than I spend at home. But great to be here, my first Ignite. And it's just been an incredible journey joining from Redlock into Palo Alto Networks in the last 7 months or so that we've been spending time bringing together the best of Evident and Redlock and combining it with the best breed capabilities around cloud security. Now, think about what's happening into your organizations for a moment. Most of your developers want to use the best multi-cloud platforms out there, typically AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, sometimes a fourth and a fifth player as well. They want to use the best native services that give them the fastest time to value, the fastest innovation, and the best capabilities. And cloud providers are shipping thousands of new cloud-native services every single year. And more importantly, they want this to be friction-free. They want this to be automated. Every time we talk to our customers, everything is infrastructure as code. Everything comes through a pipeline. Developers never manually make changes into these environments. But imagine the impact that it's having to your organizations from a security standpoint. Now you have individual lines of businesses picking their favorite cloud platforms, deciding exactly what kinds of data, what kinds of applications go where, how they run. Unfortunately, you don't have that complete visibility. Compliance frameworks were never written for the cloud era, right? So most of these frameworks, whether it's GDPR or ISO or NIST, were written in control frameworks that never thought about cloud platforms, that never thought about these hundreds of services that the cloud providers provide. Take PCI, for example. It says protect cardholder data at rest. What does it mean for your 37 different services you're running in cloud? How do you map those controls? And last but not the least, while many of the standards and the threats and the threat vectors are similar, there's a lot that are different. Now imagine, how many of you thought about crypto mining as a concern in your enterprise data center? We didn't have a lot of excess compute. It was never a challenge. So, if you look at some of the recent learnings, imagine for a second, if somebody told you that a third or almost a third of your databases were going to be exposed to the internet and receiving traffic from the internet. You'd be shocked. There'd be a war room in your organization, and you probably wouldn't be in this room right now. But that's the reality of the cloud. 32% or so of organizations have cloud storage buckets exposed directly to the internet and available to anyone. On the container security side, there's a lot of excitement around Kubernetes. But 46% of organizations have their Kubernetes clusters exposed to the internet. There's a real problem here. A problem that we need to think about differently. A problem that warrants a new security approach. One that requires you to build security into the entire pipeline. Developers have automated soup to nuts their build when they're actually creating their applications. A lot of it is using open source components. They're deploying them using, again, best of breed applications and platforms. Many of them are open source. And then they run them into public cloud environments. Now, most times, security tools are running into production environments, and many times I hear from customers that we're not in production yet, so we haven't had the need to think about investing in cloud security. But finding and fixing problems in production is a lot harder. You don't know who the developers are. You don't know why they created things the way they did. Why do they have SSH open to the internet? We don't quite know. And so it warrants an approach that shifts left. Rather, shift left is probably not the right word, but it starts on the left and continues all the way through the right. You want security in the build process. You want developers to get feedback early. Before they even push code out of their IDEs, you want them to have that feedback of what's important, what needs to be fixed from a security standpoint. You want the same checks on deployment. So if they're using Terraform, they're using CloudFormation, you want to give them the feedback of how their templates are from a security posture perspective. And ultimately, you want to also detect and remediate threats in runtime. Now, Prisma and Prisma Public Cloud, we've taken the approach for making sure that your entire cloud platforms that we believe are going to be heterogeneous. You're going to use lots of VMs as you lift and shift applications. You're going to deploy best-of-breed PaaS services like RDS and Redshift and Elastic Load Balancers and application load balancers. And we want you to detect and secure the entire lifecycle. Now, traditionally, the RedLock product and the Evident products have focused more on the deploy and runtime checks. So have our inline VM series firewalls. But for the first time last week, we announced capabilities that allow you to scan and automate checks for your developers in the lifecycle of the DevOps process, the CI/CD process. These APIs are freely available. They're available for all of you to access today and really give that early developer feedback such that it's not a conversation of he said, she said between DevOps teams and security. Rather, you guys coming together and making sure the entire lifecycle has security. I'm also thrilled to announce that last week we talked about signing a definitive agreement with Twistlock to bring the best-of-breed container security capabilities, as well as PureSec, as Nikesh mentioned, on serverless. Because we want to provide you the best of breed, but we want to provide it in a holistic pattern. We want to give you complete visibility, no matter which public cloud environments you're using. We want to give you complete control. We want to provide you complete compliance and complete threat prevention. And we're going to do this through a component and a series of capabilities that are going to be both API-based and inline. So to give you some of those examples, how many organizations here how many of you here could tell your organization or your CISO if you have any internet-connected databases running in public cloud? Could anybody have that answer today? I imagine it's hard. Understanding what assets are out there, building a CMDB, a configuration management database for your cloud, is so important because you can't secure what you can't see. And so with Prisma Public Cloud, you have the ability to know exactly what resources are deployed, where they're deployed, who's running them, and what state of configuration they lie in, to the point that you can go from zero visibility to knowing exactly which S3 bucket in this example is deployed, who is the developer making configuration changes to that bucket, all the way down to the specific change that was made, when it was made, and why it was made. And of course, speaking of alerts and remediation, if there's security issues that have resulted from this, having that visibility as well. Going further into the compliance posture assessments, compliance is hard. How do you take GDPR-like controls and map them into public cloud? We do that work for you. We have dozens of people on our team dedicated to taking compliance frameworks, mapping them and translating them to specific cloud services, and giving you that level of visibility. Giving you reporting such that your auditors or your internal audit or your board, when they ask for your cloud posture assessment or the compliance health, you have those reports readily available. They're available in the platform, as well as being available as just standalone PDF reports that are very auditor-friendly in format. And then, last but not the least, you want the ability to be able to see and detect and investigate incidents. Here's an example of taking the use case of internet-connected databases. Having a query language where you can, in rather simple English, ask the question, do I have any internet-connected databases? Where are they? Why are they internet-connected? All of that information is readily available. And then, rounding that up, having the capabilities for inline security, for threat prevention, for the known bad threats, integrating the best-of-class next-generation firewall that you've been utilizing in your on-premise enterprise data centers, applying them into public cloud, and making sure that it's working in your AWS, Azure, GCP, your Oracle, your Alibaba environments, as well as private cloud environments, so you consistently can bring that security forward. Furthermore, we have deployed a lot of automation around these VM series firewalls for specific cloud services, so you can leverage Terraform, you can leverage CloudFormation to deploy these, auto-scale these out in a truly cloud-native manner. And last but not the least, we have decoupled our release cycles for VM series such that we can move at cloud speed. We can deliver these with weekly and monthly releases to you as and when we need to make those updates. So with that, pass it back over to Lee. Thank you very much. We look forward to having you try out our Prisma Public Cloud products.
Thank you, Vern. Thank you, Adam, Varun, very much. One more round of applause for these guys. Thank you. That's a lot to take in, huh? Amazing work going on for securing the cloud and helping in that journey. Now as we transition to, we're going to go back to black. We're out of the clouds, securing the future. We're going to talk about Cortex. Now, many of you here are probably in security operations, or you have friends in security operations that you work with, and you know it's a tough place to be. Last year, we ran a survey, and we got some astonishing results, although probably not that surprising to many of you. Out of those surveyed, what they said was on an average week, they saw 174,000 alerts come in. This is the alert fatigue that Nikesh was talking about. Interestingly, they said they had capacity to deal with about 12,000 a week. Now, I find the 12,000 number actually relatively optimistic. But even if it was doubled, the delta from what's coming in to the capacity is so out of whack. It doesn't work. And there's lots of tools, but the tools aren't getting the job done. They're not dealing with this, right? So how did we end up here? There's lots of reasons. I would suggest it starts with not having good enough prevention on the front end. Really what you want from the alerts is the stuff that just can't be prevented outright. That shouldn't be 174,000 things a week. And it flows through from there. Lack of time, lack of tools, lack of automation, lack of closing the loop. And so we have a different perspective, as we often do. Our perspective is, of course, it starts with really great prevention. Now, we're smart enough to understand that we cannot prevent 100%. Although that is constantly our goal, because that would be wonderful, but we want to get as close as we possibly can to that. From there, we want to apply the best detection techniques to that. Enable efficient and quick investigation response, and automate as much of that as we possibly can with a constant feedback loop so we never have to deal with the same thing twice. That would be a better solution. Now, it starts with best-in-class prevention. And we talked about what we do in securing the enterprise with next-gen firewalls. We talked about what we do in the cloud. And we combine that with the endpoint as well, covering all forms of malware, all forms of exploits. And very exciting, and most recently, just a couple months ago, with the release of Trap 6.0, introducing a new behavioral threat protection engine. This is really incredible, because most prevention techniques focus on a single element of data and determining whether or not it's good or bad. And what this behavior threat prevention engine does is it focuses on a series of events. Let me show you what I mean. Is anything on that list malicious? Chrome, exe files, command prompt, scripts. Scripts might be suspicious, but they're not malicious. Many of you use them in your own organizations. But if you understood the causality of each of those things, if you understood that the exe was downloaded from the internet using Chrome, that it launched the command prompt, that launched a script, that then changed the registry keys and downloaded a binary, you go, oh my God, that's bad. And you'd be right. That is bad. But only if you understand the causality chain of all of these events. And what this engine does is it runs locally on the agent, such that not only can we detect this activity, but when we do, we can prevent it. We can actually prevent attacks over a series of events based on the causality chain. And even better, our security researchers can constantly update this with new definitions based on what they're seeing. In addition to that, we're constantly collecting data back up to the cloud, both from our endpoints, network, cloud. We're stitching that together, and that's what's feeding into Cortex XDR. Now, we do this first and foremost to be able to detect new and previously unknown attacks. We use machine learning. We look for behavior analytics. We apply different rules and filters so we can focus on the things that really matter. When we do that, we then expose it in the form of pre-stitched data that makes it really easy to investigate the incident, to understand root cause, to understand what else might have happened, and to do so quickly enough that the response actually happens before the attack is complete, which means the attack can be prevented. Now, we are certainly super excited about this, but it's always great to have third-party validation. And as Nikesh mentioned earlier, that came last week in the form of MITRE. In the attack framework tests that they do, they evaluated traps in XDR across 136 different attack techniques, looking not only at detection, but also what information is gathered for visibility. And out of that, we now set the standard. We set the standard for detection capabilities, scoring the highest of 10 different vendors evaluated, and the least number of attack techniques missed. All of the details of this report are available for all of you to access, either our site or MITRE's site. Now, talked about this formula, and there's a fourth piece, which is how we get a lot better at automating the response to attacks and alerts that are detected. And this is where Demisto comes in. Demisto is just phenomenal at taking in and ingesting alerts from any source and automating a set of playbooks for how to respond to these, customizable, of course, for your workflows. Could be collaboration involved, all the case management needed to carry this out, all the different capabilities needed from start to finish. And this playbook-centric model has integrations with over 270 different sources of data, both for alerts as well as to be pulled in as part of the investigation stream. Even user interaction can be automated. All of this to drive a couple of really important outcomes. We have found in almost every case that within just a matter of weeks, we can automate away over 30% of the alerts coming into the SOC. And we have found that the time to response can go from days down to a matter of minutes. And we will constantly be getting better and better at driving the first number up and the second number down. This is very important. And again, this is one of those things that sometimes is better seen than talked about. Let's roll the video.
Hello, everyone. Over the next 10 minutes, we'll take you through a journey of a security attack, the unique needs and challenges of security analysts, and how these challenges are overcome with the help of Palo Alto Networks. The organization we're looking at today is UHealth, a healthcare company based out of the US with more than 10,000 employees and a dedicated team running security operations. The organization has deployed an integrated suite of products to improve the efficiency of their security operations. Trap sensors on all employee devices, next-generation firewall to monitor network traffic, Cortex XDR for detection, investigation, and live forensics, and Demisto for security orchestration and incident management. One Monday morning, these security products are going to prove their worth. A malicious actor launches a phishing campaign targeted towards UHealth during the end of the quarter period. Employees receive this email disguised as a critical budget update. One employee clicks on the email and opens a zip file that contains a malicious script starting a chain of events. Another employee smells something fishy and forwards the email to UHealth's quarantine mailbox, praying it's not already too late. Fortunately, UHealth has the tools to deal with both these attacks. To go through a live demo, please welcome Nalima and Hadar to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Demisto has really made my life easy as a security analyst by helping me deal with incidents using a standardized process and automating many of the tasks I used to do manually previously. But before that, I want to show you the phishing dashboard that I have made for our CISO to stay on top of this evolving situation in the Demisto mobile app. Let's start the video. She can see the incoming phishing emails with attachments, the target employee groups, and by alerts by severity. She can use the standard dashboards to look at the unassigned incidents, most active investigations, late incidents, as well as incidents by severity and phase. Going back to the investigation, I can see that a phishing alert has come in from UHealth's quarantine mailbox. I want to investigate this further. So I'm going to go into the Demisto web app UI to see this. Every alert that comes into Demisto runs a task-based workflow called playbooks. The playbooks start automating actions across a number of security products so that analysts like me have all the information at our fingertips without going into multiple consoles to gather that information. The playbook has run here across multiple triage and response tasks. It has gone in and extracted indicators from the email, looked up their reputation in autofocus, gone into Exchange and found other emails with the same suspicious URL, and also blocked the malicious indicators in Panorama. I can click into a task to see more information. So here, I want to now see how many other users impacted by the same phishing email, if they have clicked on these URLs, and I'm really curious if those alerts have come in Demisto as well. So we are going to go to the related incidents page for Demisto, which groups all the security alerts by similarity index on a temporal view. You can see here that there is a malware alert that has come in, the blue dot, and looks like it has come in from Cortex XDR. This is a completely new type of alert I've never seen before, and I'm going to ask, I need to investigate this further, and I need help here. So I'm going to ask Hadar, our Cortex XDR guru, to help me here.
Thanks, Nalima. Happy to help. Let's see how we can investigate this attack using Cortex XDR. Let's start the product demo. Cortex XDR goes beyond traditional EDR solutions by providing security teams visibility across network and endpoint for enhanced detection, effective investigation, and quick response and adaptation to improve the total security posture of the organization. So how do we do that? Alerts and events from both the next generation firewall and traps are sent to our Cortex data lake, where we take the network and endpoint activities and we stitch them together into one coherent story. Based on the stitch data, we automatically create chains of events up to the root cause, which we call causality. The rich data collection also enables us effective triage and investigation by automatically grouping alerts from all sources that are part of a single attack into one incident. I can view the alert breakdown based on their severity. Let's investigate the phishing attack by going into the incident view. You can see here that there are in total 12 alerts from next generation firewall, traps, IOCs, and BIOCs, which are behavioral indicator of compromise, across two hosts, PC24 and PC22. The host and users, as well as the artifacts, are extracted and validated against threat intelligence. Let's look at one of the alerts for further investigation. This is the causality view, which automatically investigates the alerts for me to show the root cause. I can see in a glance that the root cause is Outlook, and that 6 alerts were triggered in this chain of event from various sources, stitched to processes. I can see that the user downloaded an attachment from Outlook, opened the zip file, which caused the malicious code to run and execute a couple of scripts in parallel. I can see that PowerShell executed a malware which was blocked by traps. Additional activities was also detected by BIOCs and IOCs to add context. I can also see that the next generation firewall detected a connection to a suspicious domain. And because we're stitching the endpoint and the network together, I can drill to the command line argument to see how the connection was initiated. For further damage assessment, I can view the raw events that are part of this causality, like process execution, network connections, filed activities, and more. To contain the threat, I can quickly respond by isolating the host and open Live Terminal on the remote host. Live Terminal gives me capability to connect to the remote host and a set of tools to quickly respond and investigate. I can use the task manager to verify that none of the processes are still running, and if something is, I can terminate or suspend it. I can also use File Explorer, which gives me full access to files and directories on disk in order to collect additional data or to remove artifacts from the remote machine. For more advanced methods, I can also use command line and Python to run custom commands on the remote machine. These combined capabilities, our ability to see across network and endpoint, automatically creating the causality chains and grouping alerts into incidents, makes it simple for any analyst to quickly investigate and respond to any threat. Let's go back to Demisto and see how we can close this investigation.
Thanks, Siddharth. Let's start the next video. With Cortex XDR's amazing context and investigation capabilities, I'm now sure that the malware and the phishing alert are related to the same campaign, and a serious one at that. So I'm going to link the two incidents together and start tracking them as a single campaign in this incident. Going back to Demisto's incident management UI, I can see that the Cortex XDR alert is now under the linked incident section. And also, I have the original incident data, which is the email headers, the email body, plus the campaign information as it evolves under the notes section, as well as the indicator sections. With Cortex XDR and Demisto in sync, now I'm in full control with the evolving situation. Let's go into the slide. You just saw how Cortex XDR and Demisto stopped a potentially devastating phishing campaign in its tracks by turning the unknown into the known. Let the machines do all the repetitive tasks so that humans do all the decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Nilima. Thank you, Hadar. Awesome. One more round of applause. Thank you. These are incredibly powerful tools and products, as you just saw. It turns out that when we collect all of this rich data, not only can we develop really wonderful tools and products against it, but our partners can as well. I'm not going to walk through all of these. I just want to share with you that we continue to build out the third-party ecosystem of applications that leverages this data. Many of these partners are here with us today and are on the expo show floor, and I encourage you to stop by and take a look at some of the incredible innovation that they've been able to develop on top of our data. And with that, if we go back to where we started, hopefully what you have seen and heard today shows you just how much we continue to innovate and drive across all three core pillars of the products, whether that's securing the enterprise with new advancements in next-gen firewall, securing the cloud and the journey to the cloud, and securing the future with Traps, Cortex XDR, and Demisto. A lot going on and a lot to share with you in the sessions over the next few days. And with that, thank you all very much.